name is Kelly Braga. I'm the clinical social worker and the support services manager for Impact Melanoma. Impact Melanoma is a national nonprofit that aims to provide prevention, education, and support for the most serious form of skin cancer. I'm thrilled to be here today to be talking about our support services with you. I started facilitating groups for Impact Melanoma, formerly the Melanoma Foundation of New England, about 10 years ago. And I currently facilitate a patient support group out of Beverly Hospital in Massachusetts and the telephonic caregiver support group. In addition, I took over in this role as support services manager about a year and a half ago. I'm going to give a general overview of our support services, and then I'll have Peter Barber and Mark Buckley join us to talk about their experiences. Peter is a Billie's Buddies volunteer, and Mark is a support group participant, as well as has experience with our Billie's Buddies program. Impact currently has 4 in-person support groups that run around New England. 3 are in Massachusetts in the communities of Beverly, Worcester, and Norwell. And we have 1 that runs in Connecticut out of Yale Hospital. In addition to that, we have 2 telephonic support groups, 1 for patients and 1 for caregivers. Those groups were really started in response to wanting to be available nationwide to anyone who was interested in attending a support group, but maybe didn't have one local to them in their community. In addition, given the pandemic that we're in right now, our in-person support groups are all continuing to meet telephonically, so it's been a great way for us all to stay connected. All of our support services are offered free of charge at no cost to the patient or caregiver. And all of our support groups are facilitated by clinical social workers that are really talented and experienced group of social workers to help to guide those discussions. In addition to our support groups, we also have a peer support program called Billie's Buddies. Billie's Buddies is a program where Impact trains volunteer buddies to provide support to patients and caregivers, to patients who are newly diagnosed and have recurrent disease. Most connections are made by phone and email. So the program is really already tailor-made and sort of set up to be able to continue to run seamlessly during this time. The program really works with the patient to determine what they find to be most helpful in terms of a connection. So whether that might be stage of diagnosis or treatment history or family makeup, we really do our best to make sure that it's a good connection for the patient. Some connections are ongoing and happen relatively frequently. Others are less so. It's really just a matter of what works best for the patient, and we really just try to meet their needs. Billie's Buddies was started by Impact board member Amy Walls, whose late husband, Bill Walls, died of melanoma. Bill, during his time in treatment, expressed a desire to have melanoma patients always have a buddy because he had so much support from family and friends. He really wanted that for anyone with melanoma. So Amy started the program in his memory. In addition to our support groups and our Billie's Buddies program, we also offer small emergency aid to patients that attend our support groups or participate in our Billie's Buddies program for patients that might find themselves in a financial hardship. So that's been truly an immense help to many of our patients. At this time, I'm going to include Peter and Barbara into the discussion to talk more specifically about their experiences with the program. So Peter and Mark, thank you so much for being here today and for joining us. We're so grateful for your time, not just today, but in general, all of your time and effort that you've put in with Impact. So I'll have you both just introduce yourselves, and then we have some questions that we'll open up the dialogue to. Mark, would you like to start and introduce yourself?
Sure. Thank you, Kelly. So I've known Impact Melanoma for about 15 years now, and so it's been a huge part of my life. I'm thank goodness, a longtime survivor. I've lived in Massachusetts, but now I moved down to South Carolina, and I can't be thankful enough for what the Melanoma Foundation has done for me over the years.
Thank you, Mark. Peter, would you like to introduce yourself?
Sure. Hello. Hi, my name is Peter Barber, and I'm calling in from Maine, although I live in Boston. And I was diagnosed about 5 years ago with melanoma on my back, and I'm now stable, still being treated every 3 weeks. But I and I'll be happy to answer your questions after we get going.
Thank you. Thank you both. The first question is for you, Mark. Why did you initially decide to join a support group?
Well, when I was first diagnosed, it was I had gone to one of the symposiums from Impact Melanoma Head in Boston, and I found out about a local support group in Worcester, and I thought I was trying to gather all the information I could, because so many decisions needed to be made about treatment and what to do. It's a tough time. It's a great challenge. So I'm so thankful that I went to the local support group, and I went for several years. It was always you can go and just listen and to hear the people who've gone through it, and their stories. They've always been encouraging, thoughtful, kind, and you can learn. You can get a lot from the doctors, but you get so much from others who've been dealt this card. So.
Thank you, Mark. I've had the great privilege of being able to sort of bear witness to that over the past 10 years in terms of facilitating the groups, and everything you talked about is everything that I see in my groups too. And it's really the power, I think, of a support group. And it's, just to be in a group, in a room full of people who just get it, who understand what you're going through. There's so much power in that. So thank you for sharing your experience about that.
Yes.
Peter, can you talk about why you decided to volunteer for Billie's Buddies and how you heard of the program?
Well, I heard of the program through, I'm being treated at Mass General Hospital through a social worker there. And I was inquiring as to how I could share the experience that I'd been through or still going through, because I think it's, as Mark said, it's a bit of a journey, more of a journey than a battle. And there's a lot of turns in the roads and lots of hills and ups and downs and a lot of uncertainty, a lot of anxiety, a lot of anticipation. And I wanted people to know that they're not alone. And there's a lot to be learned from others I found this out just by talking generally, but I really wanted to be able to share and to help people through the process with little things and big things, and a lot of introspection. And I was delighted there was such a good program that I could get immediately involved in.
Well, we've been so thrilled to have you. I know you already, you have 2 active buddy matches right now, and we've just been so thrilled to have you on our volunteer team. Peter, can you talk a little bit about the process of being trained to be a volunteer buddy, and how the training prepared you for your role to volunteer as a buddy?
Well, I think I'm one of the first class that was trained by Zoom.
Yes, that's right.
and by Kelly. And I'd have to say that a lot of it is fairly straightforward. There are a couple things that you clearly want to learn well, and one is to be a good listener, and the other is to be sure you're keeping confidence. I can tell you, we do get into a lot of questions to me are very detailed and very specific, and I'm more than happy to have been through it and to answer them.
Great, thank you so much. Mark, can you talk about your experience as a support group participant, and maybe what's the biggest thing that you've gained from participating in a support group?
I think it's just, it's so helpful. You gain, you can check in once a month, if you're not in treatment, or if you are, and you're dealing with people who totally understand what's going on. And just that strength that you can get from that is amazing. It's just over the course of time, because you'll run into an issue, whether you're going through a treatment radiation or a CAT scan or a new something else on your skin. There's been so many brilliant people in the group that I've gone to that it's just they've been helpful, giving you ideas and solutions, and it's amazing.
You make a good point. I have many people in my groups that are doing very, very well and no evidence of disease years later, but they continue to come month after month to the support groups because they want to, they want to forge connections and be available to someone who's newer along in their journey. And so they continue to come to be a support, to someone else. And it's also an opportunity for them to sort of retell their story. And after many years, maybe still, they're processing that and want to have an opportunity to talk about it again in a room with people who, who understand. So there's so much value, I think, into patients who are newly diagnosed in melanoma or patients who are, years out. So thank you for sharing that.
Yep.
Peter, can you talk about your overall experience of since being trained, since you've been trained, and you've been so helpful to so many buddy matches, but can you talk about how being a volunteer has impacted your life so far?
Well, I think it's been a rewarding experience without question. I think that I learned a great deal with the onslaught of both the melanoma, but also the treatments. And it's a real balance that I have found you need to find between the toxic side effects that can happen with any kinds of all treatments, but certainly with the new immunotherapy treatment, which I've had. And you have to balance between, the discomfort and the issues that come up with respect to that, and with the cancer itself. And I found that I really couldn't do much about the physical changes that would happen as a result of any number of things, but I could do my best to maintain that balance by keeping a calmness and understanding that I can work a bit on the mental side of dealing with that. And I found that dialogue, which I have with the people that I'm talking with now that are in the midst of this, seems to be of great worth to them, and it is most gratifying. I wish I'd be happy to talk to 10 people. It just is a wonderful way to sort of give to those that are in the similar situation as I have been.
Absolutely. And does that resonate with you too, Mark, in terms of the support groups? And also, I know you've had a volunteer buddy in the past that's worked with you as well through Billie's Buddies. Has that been your experience as well?
Yeah, it's just so helpful. As I keep thinking about the support group and the buddy that I had, it's one thing you go for so long, several years at the same group, because melanoma is something that you might have a situation once, but then it's continued. It doesn't go away. And it's something you have to be watchful for a long time. I know I went about 9 years from between the stage 3 melanoma and stage 4. And then, I became at stage 4. It's like, it brought back so much. And I'm so grateful that I was matched with a buddy who had been stage 4, who actually was one of the pioneers in an immunotherapy treatment in Boston. And she survived it, and she was connecting with me, phone calls for months on end, just listening and being encouraging. It's what I'm sure it's what being a buddy is all about. She was great.
Absolutely. I think it's both the emotional and the practical support that you get both from Billie's buddies and also from our support group. So certainly all kinds of emotional support is happening, but also practical support about how did you manage the side effect and what worked for you and how did you cope with this. I mean, I think that's sort of the shared experience of going through what you're both talking about. That's the power of those connections. Mark, can you maybe offer any advice to someone who might be considering joining a support group, but has some hesitation to that?
Yeah, I would just say, I mean, it's a great idea to go. It worked for me. You can go and, you'll tell a little bit about yourself, and you can sit and listen, or nowadays it's on the phone, but when it goes back to being in person, you can listen and hear what's going on with the members of the group, and share as much as you'd like, and then when you do, you're apt to get some tremendous advice, or you just have people who can empathize with you, people who show great concern and kindness about what you're going through because they understand. So I really advise to go. I advise a person to go.
Thank you, Mark.
Yeah.
I think, if we have any live questions, please feel free to send them in. And I think we do have a live one that's come up. We have a question. I'm wondering how many people are in a support group. That's a great question. It really depends on group to group. So sometimes it can be as few as 3 or 4 people, and then sometimes it can be 8 or 9 people. So it really depends on the group. And we do have some patients who come for a long time and then maybe stop coming and then start coming for different reasons, or maybe around a scan, they're wanting to connect again. So it really depends, but most of the groups, I would say, range anywhere from 3 or 4 to 8 or 9 patients. Thank you for the question. Peter, looking back at your own journey since your melanoma diagnosis and all you've learned, what's something you might like to share with patients who are newly diagnosed?
Well, let me first acknowledge the fact that it's life-changing. It's there's a whole new look-see at what's important, and I have found, as I said a number of times to a number of people, that I want a little more emphasis and focus on depth and breadth than there is on length nowadays. And I must say that I have learned to think much more with my heart than I do with just my brain. And that's warmth that comes from sharing with others, and has been enormously helpful to me and changed the way I look at my fellow humans, to be perfectly honest.
Thank you, Peter. Thank you so much for sharing that. Mark, what are some things that have helped you cope along your journey other than support groups and Billie's buddies? Have there been other ways that you found support?
Yeah, I mean, I was blessed to have a wonderful person in my life, my wife, and and some great siblings, and they've been a great support over the years. Some good friends. It does change your life. It's a life-changing diagnosis, and so things become the small things might not be as big, as important as they once were, and so your ideas change. Whether it's time to slow down. I retired from work about 4 years ago. I was 55, and now I'm doing some work again. But I think it just changes your perspective. So you try to take it one day at a time, and I try to simplify things. And when something arises, you're able to roll with it a lot better. So.
Thank you for that.
Yeah.
I think we have another live question that's come in. The question is, Mark, is there any way your group or group experience could be improved? Is there something that's lacking?
I think the group experience that I've had has been tremendous. It's been a group for the most part. Like you described, it was at one point there was 3 or 4 people. Nowadays it's probably 5 to 10. Just when people go, they listen actively, and they care very much about you, and I care very much about them because they've been such a important part of my life, and I don't know how it could be better. I mean, the person who runs the group in Worcester is tremendous and just thoughtful and kind, and I'm grateful for her, and all the people in the group who've helped me, given me strength and hope, and it's been well worth it.
Thank you, Mark.
Mm-hmm.
I think we have another live question as well. The question is, what is the training process and time requirement to be a buddy? Peter, do you want to answer just a little bit? Do you want to talk a little bit more about the training process and maybe like the application, how that was for you?
Well, it was, I think they did, you all did a good job of contacting references that we gave you so as to be sure that we were appropriate and could be hopefully not and be a benefit to somebody for sure. And I also think that the training was complete enough. I think if you have an interest in doing it, I think it makes it much easier. You're not, and I think most anyone that does this would have to have an interest in interacting with other people about their own experience, and to be honest and straightforward and sincere and caring, I think is necessary to be effective. And I think that was made clear when I was being trained, and it was, but it was a very straightforward process and not a lot of heavy lifting, no big exams, and I think the instructions come with it. This process.
Excellent. Thank you. And in terms of the time requirement, to answer that part of the question, it really depends on, in terms of how many patients that a volunteer might be matched with. So right now, for instance, Peter has 2 matches and he's talking with each of them weekly. So Peter, would you say you do maybe about 2 to 3 hours a week that you're volunteering for Billie's Buddies right now?
That's probably about right.
Sometimes,
okay. Sometimes a little longer, but sometimes depends on what's happened in the last week. And I do have an open invitation to call me, not just the next week, but or me to call them, but anytime they want.
Okay. Well, in closing, I just want to say thank you so much to both Mark and Peter for joining us today, and for all of our live viewers. Mark, Peter, is there anything that you'd like to end today with? Anything you'd like to share before we end our conversation today?
I would say thank you for the opportunity.
Yes, thank you, Kelly, for the opportunity. And I encourage anybody to take part in the programs that Impact Melanoma offers.
Thank you. Thank you both. And for more information, you can visit our website at impactmelanoma.org. There's a support tab. If you click on the support tab, it will give you information both about our support groups and about our Billie's Buddies program. Under Billie's Buddies specifically, there's a tab you can click on if you're interested in volunteering to become a buddy, or you can click apply to be a buddy. Or if you're a patient who's looking to be matched with a buddy, you can click on Request a Buddy. And my contact information is on the website as well. And I'm happy to answer any questions if you'd like to reach out to me directly. So I'd like to thank you all for tuning in today. We're so thrilled to have had the opportunity to talk about our support services. And once again, Mark and Peter, thank you for joining us today and for all of your time with Impact.
Take care. Be kind.
Thank you, Kelly. Be well.
Take care. Bye-bye.
Bye.